There's a quiet moment in a man's life that no one really prepares him for. Not retirement, not aging, not health issues. Something far more subtle and far more powerful. He is still there. He is still speaking. He is still part of the room. But something begins to shift. People stop responding to him the same way. Not suddenly. Not obviously. But quietly enough that most men don't notice. Until it becomes normal. And that is the real danger. At 72, he first noticed it during family dinners. Nothing dramatic at first. A sentence would begin, then gently get interrupted, not disrespectfully, just naturally, as if his voice no longer carried urgency in the room. Then it happened again, and again. A small joke he made would land softly. No reaction, no laughter that lingered. Then the conversation would simply move on. One night, something unusual happened. He paused mid-sentence. And no one even noticed the silence. They just continued talking. That moment didn't feel loud or dramatic. It felt worse than that. It felt like he wasn't fully there anymore. At first, he told himself it was nothing. People are busy. Families change. Attention shifts with age. But patterns don't lie. He wasn't being pushed away aggressively. He was being removed from the center of attention quietly. And that is what makes it dangerous. Because when disrespect is loud, you can react to it. But when it is silent, you start adjusting yourself to it, without realizing it. Let me ask you something most men never really think about. When was the last time someone genuinely paused to hear you finish your thought? Not out of politeness, not out of habit, but with real attention. If you have to think too long about it, that already tells you. The first thing that changes is not respect. It is attention. Because attention is the gateway to everything else. People don't suddenly decide to disrespect you, okay? They simply stop adjusting themselves around your presence. They stop leaning in slightly. And this is so subtle that most men miss it completely. But presence is not about speaking louder. It is about psychological weight. Even posture begins to play a role in how others read you. A slight withdrawal becomes interpreted as lower engagement. And without noticing it, many men begin to broadcast what can only be called background presence. Timing. You begin to notice conversations no longer pause for you. You speak, and the rhythm continues as if your input is optional. Once that happens, your voice has to compete with momentum instead of guiding it. This is where most men start to pull back. They speak less, they wait more. And that reinforces the cycle. Less presence leads to less response, which leads to less confidence. The loop doesn't start outside, starts inside. Because once the environment stops reacting, you begin to reduce your own expression. You speak softer, you move slower. You engage less, and the world reflects it back. This is the invisibility loop. But for him, something interrupted that pattern. It wasn't a dramatic event, it was awareness. He began noticing not just how people responded, but what influenced those responses. Small things. How he entered a room. How long he held eye contact without rushing away. How much hesitation lived in his tone. These were signals. He didn't try to become someone else. He didn't try to act younger. He simply became more intentional in how he existed. He slowed his speech, not out of weakness, but control. He allowed silence to exist without filling it immediately. And something subtle began to shift. People started responding differently. They paused when he spoke. They leaned in slightly more. Because presence is not about effort. It is about clarity of signal. And once that clarity returns, attention begins to return with it. The environment began adjusting to him again. Not because people changed, but because his signals changed how they interpreted him. Respect is not given once. It is continuously negotiated through small signals. When those signals improve, the feedback loop reverses. Here is what most people misunderstand about aging. It is not age that changes perception. It is the slow reduction of signals. He didn't become someone else. He simply became more deliberate in how he carried himself. And that was enough. Because people don't respond to age, they respond to presence. And once that presence returns, attention returns with it. Why do some men stay respected after 60, while others slowly fade without ever noticing when it began?